Very few people ever hear how a guy started.
Well, let's hear it.
Oh, you won at Thruxton. That was great. And then you won 4 and you came 3rd at Monaco in the Formula 3 race, and they know that because that's the news has started. But nobody ever wrote about my first win. Why should they? It was a bloody handicap race, at Goodwood in the pouring rain. And I was running the car in at 2 a.m. on the public roads, pissing rain, March the 12th or 13th. Because my partner in crime who came in with me, we put in 300 quid each, I think. At the end of the year, we sold the car for 600 quid and got our 300 back. It was amazing, really. But that's how we did it. And my friend, John Penfold, who is still a very close friend, we communicate nearly every day now. He was so methodical and such an organizer with figures and getting the budget right and what it was going to cost and all that on how to do it. And, I had to, because I was doing the first race, he said, well, you better run it in then. We only finished it at sort of 7 p.m. So I took it out on the public roads with no fenders on it. It was, the bicycle fenders. But fenders on it because we hadn't riveted them on. So I took it out of his father's. We had been in my workshops, but we actually had it up at his. They were agricultural engineers and they sold John Deere's and all sorts of tractors and machinery. So because they had a spray bay and they could put the Lotus 7 in there and spray it red, which was their company colours, because it was free. And so the bloody thing was red, And so I'm taking it down the road with it's March. March is cold in England, not Clearwater, it was England. And I'm wrapped up sitting in there. And of course, you'd never normally sit there in a massive sort of greatcoat, as we would call it. But
right.
I guess I had a helmet on. I can't remember. Probably didn't. And I remember taking it out, and he said, you better take it out and run the engine in. We built it basically ourselves, or had a very useful local guy to come and build it for us. 1500 Cortina GT engine, Ford engine. And we had a special cylinder head on it, but that was all. The rest of it was all, sort of conrods and all sorts of things.
Were you afraid though? Because you're new now. You didn't have fear? You think you had no fear, you're stupid? No fear?
No, not at all, no.
You're missing the gene?
No, no, I had no fear at all. I was excited. It was adrenaline that kept you going. It sort of you think of these nutters that, sort of do triple spins in their motocross bikes off a ramp. They haven't actually done it before. That's why, so all is that they nearly did it before. They went 6 foot, then they do 16, and then they do 26, and then 56-foot jumps, or whatever it is.
Right.
And they build up to it. And so by then they got the confidence. And although I'd never driven a race car, so
right.
I'd driven at Jim Russell Racing School, driver's school. I went there in the very beginning, but you didn't ask me that. But I went there and during, how old was I at the time? I suppose 18. I just left school. No, I was at college at Cirencester. And I remember studying agriculture because we lived on a farm. And I remember going there and one day, Jim Russell, actually, who ran the school, bless him, he actually picked me out. He said, who was driving that car? Formula Fords. But they were better than Formula Fords. They were actually Formula Junior, because they didn't have Formula Ford then. And he said, who was driving that car? And of course, we were limited. Having done the walks, the corners one weekend, and then 3 months later, I could afford to go again and that sort of thing. And I was lapping by this time. And he said, who? And you did 10 laps at 4,000, 10 laps at 4.5, 10 laps at 5, 10 laps at 5.5, and so on. And each time he did 10 laps, it was £10. Well, of course, these days, £10 nothing, but I was only earning £20 a week. Okay. And then having to live out of that. So I didn't go every week. I went once a month, once or 2 months. And then in the summer, I couldn't go because we were busy on the farm. And I was working as a farm worker with my family. And but ultimately, over a year and a quarter, year and a half, I finished the course. But I never did finish it because we got all these things going back to front we're talking about. But I went up to the Russell School one particular day, one weekend. It was 180 miles from my home to Snetterton. And I picked my girlfriend up in London, and we went on up, stayed at this dodgy little pub in the village there at Snetterton. And at the track the next day, I think I was running at like 6,500 to 7,000 revs. I hadn't got up to the maximum speeds. So, and if you came in with more revs on, they would come and check your rev counters, and they'd bollock you high and low. And Jim would go mad if you spun out or anything. And he was so right. It was such a discipline, and it didn't give the basics it gave me were so phenomenal to sort of get this, like a headmaster telling you balled that up. That Jim, had been very successful in.
Now, is this kind of secret? You said I didn't ask you this. I mean, do you not talk?
No. That's why we sort of. You didn't say to me, tell you your career from the beginning. So of course I didn't. Where does the career start? But,
okay.
Because we never even got back. I was driving tractors at 9 years old and Jeeps on the farm. So you know what I mean? So I did.
But we can talk about it. Okay.
Yeah, we no need to talk about that because I've told you now.
What's the speed? What's the speed? Like when you're talking about the revs, what's the speed?
Well, I was probably doing 100 and, the top speed would be probably 100 miles an hour, that sort of thing. And I was used to going fast, so it wasn't a problem. But I was doing it on the track, and it's the corners that you had to get right. And Jim said, "Who's driving that car there?" Oh God, what did I do wrong? Because I'd only ever really heard him give somebody a bollocking. So I went, "Oh my God, what have I done wrong?" And I went, "That's my car." And in front of these 8 or 10 other students, he said, "Right, that was amazing." He said, "I guarantee." He went on. I can't get in the right order, but basically, I guarantee within a year you'll be in a factory team.
No kidding.
Yeah. But of course, in those days, the race driving schools nowadays, they have SO sponsorship or Shell sponsors and others. So, of course, they say Shell, meanwhile, are looking for a young star. So they'd say, we'll help him on his way. In those days, there was no commercialism.
When does a kid need to start today if he wanted to get into it? Because it's a little different.
Well, I just dread to think. I mean, 4 or 5 years old, as soon as you can sit behind the steering wheel, really.
So starting karting.
Yeah, karting, but we never had karts in my day.
Right.
I never did. The problem with but again, we're just straying a little bit. But he ramped on. So I'm up to that. But he ramped on about the challenge I had and get out and do another 10 laps. And I thought we were paying £1 a lap then, so it cost you £10 every 10 laps, and which seems nothing today, but it was a bloody lot of money when all you earned was
20 a week, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so So anyway, he went out and did 10 more laps, and he came up and he said, and in front of everybody again, went on, and I'm going, this is me he's talking about. I mean, I didn't know. I'd never been around with anybody else. You know what I mean? I guess I'd seen the others, but we weren't allowed to race because it wasn't racing. We were just doing 10 laps.
Right.
Do you follow me?
Right.
And but it was very interesting. But he went on and he said his actual words were, "I can't do anything more for you." And I hadn't finished the course. He said, "You should." And Jim used to come out and actually, guide us. We'd get in it. He was a General Motors dealer. He sold Vauxhalls this week. I remember you get in this 6-seater Vauxhall, new, and Jim would sit. There were no helmets on. We just in whatever we were in because we never had overalls in those days. We had helmets, goggles, and we get in them. And I remember sitting there with him, and he would just go around the track showing us the lines and showing what would happen if we got the wrong line. And I've always remembered the way he drove us. And there I was driving with certainly one of the best drivers in Britain, because he used to race against Sterling and do well against Sterling. He never went on much from that, I don't think. And there he was showing me the way. And that's why ever since then, when people say to me, not that I do much driving school stuff, but when I have been out, they say, take me, I want to really see the lines. And I'd show them, they say, God, that looks so easy. And then I'd show them the wrong lines. Oh my goodness. And I just think to see a good, I wasn't saying I was good at that time, but as time's gone on, I became a better driver.
But what's the natural part when they're watching you from the stands or whatever they're watching, where they're watching you at the school and you're going around and they're checking your rev counter at the end and they're watching you, are they trying to look for the combination of high RPM and not hearing tires squeal?
Well, tire squeal didn't mean you were going quickly. It meant you just nearly fell off the road. So but you're right. They were just looking for people that look natural.
This has been Jeff Stearns, Connected Through Cars.